Science Journal for Kids and Teens presents How Are Chemicals Impacting Our Reproductive Health? Adapted from the original peer-reviewed paper in the journal Environmental Research, published on September 9, 2021. Research conducted by Geraldine Delbes from the Armand Frappier Biotechnology Center at the National Institute of Scientific Research, INRS, in Canada. See the full list of authors in the accompanying PDF. Read by Miranda Wilson. Abstract. You might have heard of a chemical called BPA. Maybe you have seen a BPA-free label on a reusable water bottle. But did you know that BPA is just one chemical that is part of a much larger group known as endocrine-disrupting chemicals, or EDCs? EDCs are everywhere. They are in most food packaging, cosmetics, shampoo, and even in antibacterial soap. But now, scientists are starting to understand that these chemicals could be the cause of many health problems, including reproductive problems. In this study, we reviewed the scientific research looking at EDCs and reproduction in both fish and mammals. We wanted to understand what the research said about how these chemicals impact reproductive systems. The studies we reviewed used laboratory animals to better understand reproduction in fish and mammals. What we found was quite worrying. There is lots of evidence to show that EDCs can cause changes in how the reproductive system develops and grows. There is also evidence that EDCs have long-term impacts, including fertility problems and reduced reproductive success. Introduction. The endocrine system regulates many functions throughout the body. It has three main parts: glands, hormones, and receptors. Glands produce the hormones, which then travel around the body in the blood. Once they reach the cell, they bind to hormone receptors. This controls different processes within the cells. So basically, they are like messengers that tell your body what to do. Hormones control many important functions, such as growth, sexual maturity, and sleep. Endocrine-disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, can interfere with this messaging system. But how? EDCs have a similar chemical structure to hormones. This means they can mimic hormones or block hormone receptors. That affects the way the endocrine system works. Here in Figure 1, you can see a comparison of the structures of a natural reproductive hormone and a man-made EDC. On the left is estradiol, an estrogen hormone, and on the right is nonylphenol, often found in detergents. EDCs are in many products, such as electronic equipment, building material, cosmetics, and food packaging. Scientists have found a link between the rise in their production and a worldwide increase in reproductive problems. Exposure to EDCs can cause long-term and short-term effects. For example, EDCs can affect how the reproductive system grows during development. These changes can cause long-term effects, such as reducing reproductive success. In this study, we reviewed what scientists have learned about the impact of EDCs on reproduction. We focused on the key development stages in both fish and mammals and how EDCs impact them. Methods. First of all, we decided which key development stages to focus on. In fish, we focused on sex ratio regulation, gonad growth, and puberty. Sex ratios in fish? We might expect that when fish lay hundreds of eggs, the balance of male and female would be about 50-50. But actually, genetic and environmental factors, such as temperature, pH, and oxygen levels, can change the ratio. Some fish even change gender during their lifetime. In mammals, we focused on the development of male and female reproductive organs. We then looked for research that focused on the impact of EDCs on these key developmental processes. Finally, we reviewed those research papers to get an overall picture of the effects of EDCs on reproduction. To help us look for trends in the data, we created a table that showed all the different impacts of EDCs on the key development stages. As we were reviewing the research, we tallied up how many times each impact appeared in the experimental research. This allowed us to see which effects were most common. Results. The studies we looked at presented a lot of evidence about EDCs affecting reproduction. For fish, EDCs impact the sex ratio of fish spawn. EDCs that mimic estrogens result in a higher number of females being born. EDCs reduced the size of testes and ovaries, lowered the sperm count, and reduced reproductive success. These impacts were short-lived or permanent, depending on the chemical, the concentration, and the time and the length of exposure. And EDCs also affected the timing of puberty. Some caused early puberty, and others delayed puberty. For mammals, several studies showed that EDCs can affect testosterone levels in male rats. Early exposure to EDCs can cause underdeveloped testes as adults. This is because male gonad development depends on testosterone. In humans, there are links between EDC concentration in the umbilical cord or breast milk and lower fertility in adult men. Female rats exposed to EDCs as fetuses had abnormal ovary growth. And there was also evidence that the effects of EDCs could impact multiple generations. If young rats were exposed to EDCs, then their offspring also showed effects in their reproductive organs. Here in Table 1, you can see how many times we found different impacts of early EDC exposure in fish and mammals. Across the top, you can see the data divided into 3 categories: fish on the left, male mammals in the middle, and female mammals on the right. Below each header, you can see the different impacts we focused on and the number of times we observed those impacts. For example, in fish, we looked at sex ratio regulation. We found a higher male ratio 4 times, a higher female ratio once, more intersex fish twice, and twice we found no clear results. Other results to note were high incidences of delayed puberty in fish, abnormal growth in both male and female mammals, and lower testosterone levels in male mammals. Discussion. We found a lot of evidence that exposure to EDCs early in life can cause changes in gonad development in both fish and mammals. This in turn can have long-term consequences on reproductive success. We also learned that the impacts of EDCs are complicated. Each chemical has a different impact on the reproductive system depending on the message they interfere with. Even the same chemical can have multiple effects depending on when in life an animal is exposed to it. The concentration of the chemical and the length of the exposure also affect how the reproductive system is impacted. There is scientific evidence that EDCs cause a negative impact on reproduction in wildlife and humans. Still, we really need more research to better understand how these chemicals disrupt the system. Hopefully then, we will be able to better regulate their presence in our environment. Also, we need a better understanding of environmental EDC concentrations so we can understand our exposure to them. And we need to learn about the combined effects of multiple EDCs on reproduction. Conclusion. EDCs are invisible chemicals that can be either natural or man-made, so it is impossible to avoid them completely. However, you can try to limit your exposure by thinking about what you eat, drink, and buy. Have a look at the list of common EDCs in Table 2 and try to avoid products that contain these chemicals. Be mindful of both the ingredients in your food or toiletries, for example, but also the packaging they come in. Unfortunately, a BPA-free label doesn't mean EDC-free. Always avoid microwaving food in plastic containers since this can cause EDCs to leak into your food. Here in Table 2, you can see some common EDCs and their sources. These include bisphenol A, or BPA, that can be found in plastics such as food storage material, DVDs, food cans, and thermal paper or receipts. Nonylphenols, found in laundry and dish detergents, latex paints, and lawn care products. Parabens, found in food preservatives, shampoo and cosmetics, makeup and moisturizers. Phthalates, also found in cosmetics, sunscreen, food packaging, drinking straws, and insecticides. Perfluorochemicals, found in clothing, nonstick food wrappers, and popcorn bags. Triclosan, which is found in antibacterial soap, toothpaste, mouthwash, and deodorant. Polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, found in electronics and building materials, insulation, fiberglass, and paint. And dioxins, found in waste incineration, fires, and volcanic eruptions. Thank you for listening to this recording. Visit our website, sciencejournalforkids.org, for more free science teaching resources.